Well, welcome to our quick tutorial on our annual budget planner. Thanks for picking this planner up. I really hope that you find it useful. This is quite comprehensive. You'll notice that it doesn't just have 1 month like our monthly budget planner. It actually has all 12 months down here. So lots of tabs, lots of information, lots of data, and a really great organized way to keep up with everything. I'm going to kind of go through the basics of it. You also should have a PDF that explains everything as well as the startup tab right over here on the bottom left. That gives you information on how to use it as well. So feel free to consume the information and learn in whatever way is best for you. And if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to message us. And of course, take a look at other products that we have to help you achieve your financial goals and keep you financially organized. One quick disclaimer. I always like to just remind you, we are not financial advisors. Everything that you see on Rise Money Tools is really about is more organized and prettied up versions of what we've used on our side to actually help get out of our own personal debt and financial growth journey. So we've just made something that is a bit more user-friendly than the chaos that we had when we were going out. But if you have any specific financial related questions and what strategies would be best for you, please make sure you consult with the appropriate and licensed financial advisor. Okay, so after we take a look at the bottom left here on the start menu, then we can move right over to setup. Now, I've already filled in a bunch of the information just to spare you your time, but I'm going to briefly go over what each tab does. So for this, you're going to enter your name. You can put the budget year in, currency. I have set to US dollars. And then I just put starting net worth of 15,000. I just threw a bunch of random numbers in here. Let's say that you have a salary, primary salary of $8,000. If you're a dual income family or if you work multiple jobs, you could put another monthly amount that you take home. Maybe you have a side hustle like, hey, we sell stuff on Etsy. We make a few $100 on that, right? So you can, anything that you have from an income perspective, you can put that over here. You'll notice you have income and then expenses. Then on the expense categories, we've pre-filled a bunch that should work for the majority of your stuff. But basically what you're going to do is they fall under need, want, and savings. So a need is like obviously a necessity. It's something you have to be able to live your daily life. So a roof over your head, got to be able to, turn the water on, put food on the table, right? So the basic stuff. And then your wants would be things that are nice to have, but hey, maybe you don't have a budget right now for dining out or for going to the movies. Maybe you're in savings mode or you're just trying to get out of debt, whatever it is, right? But you can change these to needs, wants, or savings. It's also okay to just mark them as a zero if they're not in the stars right now for you, and that's perfectly fine. And then, of course, savings. So if you have emergency funds or retirement investments, sinking funds and debt payment, you'll see later in the spreadsheet here. So anyway, you'll just want to fill all these out with the appropriate numbers and then move on to the next one. The next tab is bank accounts. If you look at the bank accounts, what you're basically going to do is just go through primary checking, savings, any investment accounts that you have, any cash on hand, credit cards, and anything else. You can also add your own here and if you have a loan or a line of credit, all that stuff, it'll be in there, right? So put what your starting balance is and then what the current balance is. This is nice because over time you can come and screenshot this stuff and you can really see your growth over time. So kind of a nice way to see where you started and then eventually where you're at as you continue to update this over the months. The next tab is transactions. Kind of goes without saying, but we have transactions to keep track of all the different things that you pay for. Now, one really cool and very important thing on this is you'll notice at the top that we have recurring transactions for step one, and step two is the transaction log. The recurring transactions do not automatically go onto the transaction log. However, these are anticipated and regular expenses that you have. So for example, if you pay $1,800 a month in rent every month and you know your utility or your electric bill is consistent or your internet or your auto insurance or your whatever, and even your paycheck, for example. So if you're making $8,000 a month and it's coming in, you can put the pace in there. Maybe it's monthly, you just get paid once a month, whatever. But you can put in there what it looks like, right? And so this will count as either expense or income based on the category that you select. And then you'll be able to add this down here to your transaction log. And I'll show you how to do that momentarily, but you will see instructions here, enter each recurring item, and then you're going to go up to the Rise Money Tools up here at the top, and we'll add that in. I'm not going to do it this very second. I wanted to give you an example first, okay? So I've put in, you may have other expenses. You can put them in here that are monthly expenses that you experience regularly that might be the same every single month. So again, the recurring expenses are anticipated and they are the same every single month. They're probably on auto pay or they're things that maybe you just know that on the first of every month your rent is due or whatever. Okay. The next one is your transaction log. So eventually your recurring transactions are going to show up on your transaction log, but your transaction log is where you're going to keep track of everything as it comes in. My recommendation is that you don't do this weekly. Like I would actually just like notate it and like, finish your day. Go in here and put any expenses or any bills that you paid on any particular day. If you go to the grocery store, throw it in here. Keep up with that stuff, right? Where did the money get spent? Where did it come from? Is it is an expense? Is it income? Did you transfer money or receive a transfer from somebody, right? So you can keep track of that here. Of course, you have the categories, which is really great. So there's a bunch of categories that are already in here. You can add your own if you'd like. Okay, now we want our recurring transactions to show up in our transaction log. The way that we do that, if you follow the instructions here, you would click on the menu bar up top, or Rise Money Tools, and you're going to click on Add Recurring to Log. Okay, so when I click on that, it's going to go ahead and run the appropriate script. Yes, we have to authorize. Okay, so if you receive that authorization thing, it's just saying, "Hey, this is, we're running a code behind the scenes in the spreadsheet to make sure that it's through your Google account. We have to make sure that we have permission to do that. So it's actually that we don't get access to anything, just to be fully clear. It's just because this is a sheet, and they want to make sure that, hey, like it's okay that we're updating it, and it's okay that you allow this to kind of like update within your Google account, whatever it says. So it may say like, hey, click on advanced and then click on authorizations, and then you'll have to authorize the Google account to have permission to leverage the tool. So I did cut that part out for mine just because I have personal credentials in there and I didn't want to share those with you. So anyway, once you click on that and select OK, you'll notice that, look at this, all of the recurring transactions you'll see under source, all the recurring transactions are in here. Now, let's say that like maybe you're starting this in February and January is not relevant. You can just come in here and delete any of these transactions if you need to, and they just won't show up anymore. Okay, so you can certainly do that. But what it's going to do when you add these, you go to Rise Money Tools, you click on add recurring log, and when you do that, it's going to add everything for the entire year. Okay, what that does is now when you go to the monthly tabs, you'll see everything already added in there as far as your recurring expenses. Okay, it's not going to calculate anything that you haven't added in manually. So the stuff that's not recurring, like the random gift or the groceries or things like that, but you get the idea. Okay. Then we have the annual breakdown. This is really more informative than anything else. There's nothing for you to fill in here, but you can take a look on here what everything looks like. Okay, so you'll notice that there's ways to check and see if things are on track. Are you on pace? Are you under pace? All that. So even though you haven't gotten to December or November or October or September maybe for your housing expenses, they're all already in there. So you have the prediction of what that looks like. So your total plan when you were originally setting things up, like this is like your budget, like how much you've allocated each month. So if you give yourself $700 a month for groceries, when you go into your annual breakdown, you'll notice groceries has $700 a month. If you overspend and you're spending more than $700 per month, it's going to tell you in here. So you'll be able to see that. So just kind of a nice annual breakdown overview. You also have your annual dashboard, which is another way to look at similar information. So just again, just another way to look at it because we all like looking at things and receiving information differently. So this is another way that you can do that. Okay. And it'll show you your annual income year to date, your annual expenses year to date, your net cash flow, total savings, and average monthly spend. Okay. So you can see all that in there. And then each month, you don't have to come in here and plug anything in. Again, these are just visual tools. So you're going to live in your setup, in your bank accounts, and in your transactions. And most of the rest of this is going to be to give you information so you can look monthly instead of annually. I'm going to zoom out a little so you can see it. So you can look monthly instead of annually, and you can like break down each individual month and kind of get more granular on it if you'd like to. Okay, so that's just kind of what that's for. Now at the bottom, if we scroll over to the right, there's a bunch more tabs over here. So let me quickly go through these. You've got December, then next to that is bill calendar. So bill calendar is only going to show you your recurring expenses that are not income related. Okay, so recurring expenses, not income. Okay. And so anything that you put in on the setup at the beginning over there, this is a way for you to excuse me, this is a way for you to come back and look and say, okay, this is when these different payments are due, and you can plan accordingly. So it's just a nice way for you to easily look at how things are going and to see what day of the month your recurring bills are. That's why it's called a bill calendar. Okay. So predicted and regular bills are going to show up on there. Okay. Your 50, 30, 20, the concept of this is keep the needs in your life at 50% or less of your net, your wants at 30% or less of your net, and your savings at 20% or less. Okay, that's kind of like how it should look. And this just gives you an idea of whether or not you're on pace for that. Okay, feel free to look those things up if you want to, or ask a question to us if you have any questions specifically about 50, 30, 20, concept, but that's basically what that is. Your paycheck planner, this is a way for you to come in. You'll notice I've allocated a couple of expenses, but like, for example, it's a way for you to come in and kind of allocate like, oh, this is what I would use my first paycheck for, my second paycheck for. You can kind of allocate expenses. So for example, rent is due on the first, and if my first paycheck comes in on the first, I know I'm not going to use my paycheck number one for that. So if I get 2 paychecks a month, I may allocate paycheck number two to rent for the upcoming month. So when I do that, you'll notice I can put in the due date, I can put any notes in here that I want. But what's cool about it is as I add in these regular expenses and what paycheck they're allocated to, it's nice because I can see, okay, well, this is how much dollar amount my bills are assigned to that paycheck, and it tells me how much is remaining from that paycheck after the bills are assigned. Now you might say, well, wait, James, I thought you said that you got $8,000 a month. Well, I took an estimated net, which would be like, let's call it, $5,800 after taxes and withholdings and all that kind of stuff, whatever. That's my estimate. Talk to your accountant about that for yourself. But I took kind of an estimate on that. And figured, okay, I'll probably net 2,900 a month. So now I have 2,900 per paycheck. So now I can say 2,900, and then which regular bills am I going to assign to that? So you'll notice I have $1,800. That's my rent is assigned to paycheck number two. So I have $1,100 worth of bills that I can still assign to that, right? So this is just another planning tool. It just helps you kind of figure it out. And you can select which of those you want to put in there. So if you have very regular expenses, this is just a really great way for you to look in here and say, okay, cool, here's how much is left from each paycheck. And by the time I'm done, I can look at those wants that I have at the beginning instead of my needs. I can look at the wants. And if I've got $500 a month left over, then I can say how cool I could have a savings budget, or I could, go out to dinner or take the family to the movies or whatever it is that you do. Okay. Savings and sinking funds. These are two different things. I'm going to talk about them together to make sure you understand the difference. Savings is like stuff that doesn't have a specific time frame. They're not required expenses. They're just things that you're saving for. So maybe like a family vacation or a down payment on a house. It could be anything, like a long-term goal that doesn't necessarily have a deadline, and it's not something you have to have. It's something more that this would probably fall mostly in the want category, okay? So you put your goal amount, you put how much you've already saved, and how much you would like to try and contribute monthly to that. And it'll say, hey, to achieve your goal, this is how many months you have left. Shows you your progress bar. You can get some totals at the bottom and at the top, and a little cool graph on the side to see your progress. Now, sinking funds, on the other hand, these are expenses that are going to come up every year that you're anticipating, but they don't necessarily have like a specific day that they come due. So for example, maybe you got to get new car tires and you need a car maintenance fund, but like, it's not like your car maintenance happens every February on the second Friday of the month. Like you might say, gosh, I just need to make sure that I have some extra money lying around for when I do need car tires. Or I know every Christmas it's going to cost a couple grand for the whole family and the kids and all the stuff, right? So I want to put a savings goal in there. So I know these are more like needs. I'm going to ultimately have to do this, or hey, the kid broke their arm, I might have to take him to the doctor. I want to have some extra funds set aside for that kind of stuff. So just a good place for you to come in here. Sinking funds, again, are expenses that you expect to have. They are real, and they do have more of like a deadline, if you will, in the sense that you need this money to be available to you each year. But it doesn't necessarily happen on like a certain and specific day. So let's say that I'm going to put car tires as an example here. If I go car tires and I need 700 bucks for car tires, my target date to have the money would be the end of the year. Maybe I have 7 months left to get that. Well, how much have I saved? Well, I've only saved 200 bucks. So between now and the end of the year, it says, gosh, I have to save $71.43 a month. Now, let's say I throw a couple extra dollars in this next month and I've got $450 saved up. Now I still have 7 months left to save the money, but I only need to put 35.71 to it. So you can play with these numbers, and if you want to give yourself a little bit more of a head start, you can. But mess with that. This is a really great tool. Sinking funds is a really fun thing to a really organized and fun thing to look at because it's a nice visual and helps you just plan for some of those unexpected expecteds. The debt tracker. So this is going to be, you are going to put your credit cards in here. You're going to put any other loans that you have. So like an auto loan, maybe you have student loans. You've got a bunch of different categories here, personal loan, mortgage, medical, whatever. Um, you're going to put the original balance and then your current balance. So your current balance, you can actually come in here and change. So each month when you get your updated credit card statement or your updated, auto loan statement, like whatever, come in here and change the number, and then it'll update like, okay, you're on target, or maybe you made an extra payment, and it'll give you your payoff date. Now, you'll see over here, payoff date, it says warning. Minimum payment is less than the interest. Okay. This is something to look out for. If you're only making a minimum payment of 100 bucks on this loan, it's not going to do enough. So you typically the bank is not going to allow you to pay less than that. Your minimum payment's going to cover at least the interest plus knock down some of the principal. But you'll notice if you're making less than what even the interest alone would be, then you're going to get a warning there because there won't be a payoff date. It means the debt is growing, not getting bigger. So if I come in here and I update that number, you'll notice, okay, great. If I pay 200 bucks a month at a 23.99% interest with this current balance, it's going to take me until 2032 to pay it off. Okay. And then your net worth. This is where you just come in. You can put in your any kind of assets that you have. If you own a vehicle, if you own property, if you have retirement, you can put that in here, and then it'll calculate that against your liabilities. So, your credit cards, your loans, your mortgage, all that stuff, and you'll ultimately get to see your assets and liabilities, and it'll give you your net worth. Again, this is only as accurate as the information that you put in, but an absolutely wonderful tool to help you with your budgeting and your planning on an annual basis. It also gives you that nice monthly breakdown. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. Wish you all the best of luck with your financial goals, and may it be the most fruitful year you've had to date. We'll talk soon.